Sawate discipuli and sawate omnes. Welcome again to my kitchen, my dining room, as we dive into some words associated maybe with some New Year's resolutioners, if you will. And well, before I get to it, I know that TikTok might be going away in a hot second here. So go follow me on YouTube. Go hit me up on Instagram or whatever so you can interact with me and we can do all this etymology, the word stuff, the rhetoric revolution, and we keep it alive. I also have a podcast, Latin and Layman's Rhetoric Revolution, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Casts, wherever you get your podcasts. Now let's get on into it here, starting off with motivation right above me. Motivation is two aspects. You have that moti plus that ation. Ation making an abstract word, a noun, a verb, an adjective, but in this case, a noun. The noun of to move. Motivation is movement, essentially. What gets you moving, right? But we can't be motivated 24/7, 65, 365 days a year or anything like that, right? Motivation dies after a while, you guys. You realize that because you see how at the gym, everybody talks about how it starts off at the beginning of January being super busy. And then by the end, like the second or third week, it just kind of dwindles off because that motivation doesn't stick. And a little side note here before I continue on is because a lot of the time, and let me go ahead, I need to straighten you up here. All right, you're a bit straightened up now. But what I have to say about this is that when you come into the New Year's, people a lot of the time are motivated in a negative state of mind where they hate their body, they hate their image, they hate the amount they've consumed, or they hate, this stuff. And the motivation comes from a place of, I'm going to David Goggins it. And honestly, David Goggins, really bad message. For those that follow David Goggins is probably doesn't live a happy life. He probably hates himself because he has such an internal dialogue that's so negative and nasty. Um, what I tended to see as a physical therapy assistant and when trying to motivate these people is that it's all about the small wins, right? It's not about trying to get there 5 days a week or anything like that. Start off with walking 1 day a week, 2 days a week. I remember I had a client that would refuse to work out. And I was like, well, how about let's read? Let's read a fitness article once a week. That started off. Then that turned into a day of walking and then 2 days of walking. And then little by little, you grow and you develop these habits coming from habito, which means to live, and or in the noun version, alive, right? Because when you're alive, you are living with the habits that you are, associated with. That's where you get the word habitual, or when you cohabitate, you live with someone, all right? So that being side noted, love yourself. Go into the Year's resolution being like, you know what? I want to take care of myself. I want to give myself better fuel. I want to give myself better movement. I want to work on my flexibility. I love my feet. I love my legs. I love my hands. They allow me to do so much in this world that I forget to give them acknowledgement for. That being said, we have the action of getting to move, right? So now we're moving, but we kind of dwindle and we stop. That's where we have also willpower that might be like, all right, you know what? Maybe you're a type A where you're like, all right, I'm still going to bust through. After a while, you're busting through, but then what does that lead to? Burnout. I burn out all the time. I need to stop. I need to take my own medicine. Liam, take your own medicine. Anyways, power comes from the potere in the Latin, which means to be able to. That's where you get potential and or potential energy, right? Because potential energy is stored energy that can be stored and stored and stored and made more and more powerful as it is stored until it is released into kinetic energy. Think about like a sprinter, for instance, on a block, storing that potential energy, potential, boom, and all that potential then turns into kinetic and they run. Next one that we have here is habits coming from habito, which means to live. This is what we want to make those New Year's resolutions rather, things that are what we're living with now. That being said, con means together or under with. Sist comes from that derivation of stitium, which means a standing of, a participial thing. So essentially, consistency means a standing with. So a standing with your habits. Essentially, once you develop that consistency with your habits, then it's easy peasy. Then the motivation has turned into inertia, and inertia is just movement, and it's positive movement, and it builds on itself more and more and more and more and more. So with that being said, I'm done. Happy New Year. Obsessed to Skedray.